Meeting of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is called to order at 6:33 p.m. We'll begin with a call of the roll in order to establish quorum. Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Nellis.
Present.
Commissioner Driver is present. Commissioner Terry.
Present.
Commissioner Gomez. Commissioner Troncoso. Commissioner Loizon.
Present.
With 6 out of 7 members of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability present, we have a quorum and we can conduct the commission's business. We will begin with public comment. If you would like to share something related to the commission's work on public safety and accountability, you have a few options. You can speak at a public meeting. You can also submit public comment in writing by emailing your comments to Community Commission Public Comment at cityofchicago.org. Or you can bring a copy of your comment to one of the commission's public meetings and give it to someone on the commission or someone on the commission staff. People who wanted to speak during public comment period tonight were asked to submit their names in writing earlier tonight. Names were then drawn at random by a member of the commission staff. Speakers will be called in the order in which their names were drawn. If your name is called to offer public comment, we ask that you approach the microphone and line up in the order in which your name is called. When it's your turn to speak, please say your name and then spell your name and then offer comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. We have allotted a total of 20 minutes for public comment. Are we good with the virtual speakers? Our first speaker will be District Council Member David Orlikoff, who is speaking virtually. Oh, and for the purposes of quorum, Oswaldo Gomez is present. All 7 of the members of the CCPSA are present.
Hello. Thank you. My name is David Orlikoff, in the 14th District, Humboldt Park, Logan Square. DAVID
Excuse me,
ORLI.
David. Okay, there we go. All right, you can continue.
Thank you. David Orlikoff, DAVID ORLIKOFF as in fire truck. I'd like to speak today to urge the commission to act in regards to ending pretextual traffic stops, particularly in light of what's come out about Dexter Reed. There's no reason that we should be devoting so many of our resources to aggressively policing Black and brown drivers for things like not wearing seatbelts. So I think there's 4 strong reasons that we need to act quickly. Number 1 is that this is really the new stop and frisk. This is traffic stop and frisk. We know that the second stop and frisk was banned, these traffic stops increased 600%, and they're not effective. Number 2, it's not good for road safety. I've personally been hit by cars many times and spoken with constituents. And it's unfortunate that as traffic enforcement has increased, they've actually only been focusing on things that are not having an impact on our danger at our safe ways. So enforcement for reckless driving and speeding has decreased as traffic stops have increased. Number 3, it's not effective for public safety because 99% of these cases are not resulting in anything like an arrest, etc. And it hasn't worked. I've asked my commander, has this helped with our robberies? And she had no examples of it helping with anything. Number 4, finally, it's racially discriminatory. Black drivers are 6 times more likely to be pulled over in the city. Latino drivers twice as likely. And shockingly, 97% of all uses of force are against people of color and not white people in the city. So we definitely need to act quickly, pass a general directive to ban pretextual traffic stops, limit low-level searches, and end consent searches and low-level stops. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more virtual speaker, right? Our next speaker is Matt Beasley.
Hi, good evening. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Can hear you.
Great. Again, my name is Matthew Beasley, MATTHEWBEESLEY. I am a Chicago police officer, and I'm very glad that pretextual stops was brought up. One thing I want to point out for pretextual stops is that the state of Illinois has had for many years a program called Click It or Ticket, something that we've had since we were kids. So to say it's a pretextual traffic stop for seatbelts is blatantly false. It is for safety, just like there's DUI checkpoints, there are seatbelt checkpoints. All throughout the state of Illinois, there are grants that are given to Chicago police as well as other police departments across the state, specifically for for checkpoints for seatbelts. So to say it's pretextual is wildly off base. Now, to go to my original point, I want to bring it back to ShotSpotter. I talked about this 2 months ago, and I want to bring it back. Mr. Driver, I applaud you for your meetings, again, with Andrea Kirsten, with the superintendent, with everybody else. And I want to implore you to consider having additional meetings about ShotSpotter. You say, and the board says, that it cannot change or influence the mind of the mayor, but you've proven with your meeting that you just had the other day with the superintendent and with Andrea Kirsten that you can bring people to the table and you can talk about very important topics, including ShotSpotter. 2 Chicago police officers have died in the past year, and in both of these robberies and or carjackings, these shootings were recorded on ShotSpotter. This is not a fluke. This is not some kind of outlier. ShotSpotter is an accurate tool, and if anybody visits any SDSC room in any district, you would be able to recognize the same. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And I will remind our speakers, and this is not geared towards the virtual speakers. We have a little bit over what we've allotted here, but we are going to allow everybody to speak that has thus far submitted. But please respect the 2 minutes so that we're able to move on with our agenda. Our first speaker is District Council Member Robert McKay.
Good evening. I'm 5th District Councilor Robert McKay, Commissioner Robert McKay in 5th Police District, which is located on 111th Street. We just held a meeting on Monday in Allgale Gardens. And one of the issues I brought up was about the consent decree, which is the city of Chicago is only, when the police department is only 5% compliant. Now, we read where the monitors, federal monitors stated that they're 100% compliant. So wondering how can they be 100% compliant when they're monitoring the consent decree? And if they're 100% compliant, then the police department should be on that level also. Now, according to the consent decree, which I have the introduction to it, and if I can go to it right away, I know my time is running here. Introduction, the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, collectively, the parties hereby enter into a consent decree agreement on terms and conditions set forth below. The state, the city, and the city of Chicago Police Department or the department are committed to constitutional and effective law enforcement and furtherance of commitment. The parties enter into the agreement to ensure the city and the CPD deliver services in a manner that fully complies with the Constitution, laws of the United States and the state of Illinois, respects the rights of people of Chicago, builds trust between officers and the communities they serve, and promotes community and officer safety. In addition, this agreement seeks to ensure the Chicago police officers are provided with training, resources, and support they need to perform their jobs professionally and safely. This agreement requires changes in the areas of community policing, impartial policing, crisis intervention, and use of force, recruitment of hiring and promotions, training, supervision.
Thank you,
Officers,
Mr.
wellness.
McKay, that's your time. 2 minutes have expired. Sorry, there was no bell.
All right, thank you.
The next 3 speakers we have, Mr. Frank Chapman. After him, Vondell Singleton, and then Sydney Brooks.
I'm wasting my time telling you my name. Okay, allow me to explain our demands that we have been demonstrating for since the murder of everybody in the mic check. Mic check. Say, take action, change policy immediately, talking about the stops. We mean take whatever action you are empowered by the law to take. We understand that there's a process, but the sooner we act, the sooner things are set in motion. We are not we're not clear about what all we can do as commissioners. But we are saying that you should team up with the community to make sure that we get justice we deserve. This is your opportunity to tell us what you can and can't do, so we can adjust our expectations accordingly. And our demands are addressed in a proper and efficient manner. Just a delay is just a denial. So what you can do, please proceed to do it now. When we say immediately, we mean act with urgency, because this is a very serious problem that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Vondell Singleton, and I'm the founder and CEO of the CHAMPS Male Mentoring Program. CHAMPS stands for Culturally Helping and Making Positive Success. And as we approach the summer, I just want to emphasize the importance of all stakeholders coming together and work together for the safety of our city, in particular our youth. I particularly focus on social emotional learning, mental health, leadership development, and identity formation with about 400 boys and young men of color here in Chicago. As we also look to the funds that are being dispersed around community violence intervention, I know that a lot of violence interrupters are at the table, but I also want us to think about violence prevention, to focus on the youth before we have to do high-level intervention with our young people. And then also just to challenge everybody to lean in a little bit. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of tragedy happening within our city. A lot of deaths of 9-year-olds and 7-year-olds is ridiculous to me. So I wanted to advocate that we are going to be doing a march on June 8th on the west side of Chicago. And we're calling 1,000 boys and young men of color. It's not just a march, but it's an opportunity fair in which we have over 30 partners. Our goal is to get to 50 organizations focused on bringing out 20 youth. So thank you for your time. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Hello, board members. Sidney Brooks, SIDNEY, BROOKS. I have given a year to watch the process, and we are still back at beginning. In my district, we still don't have communication with the commander. In our district, our commissioners are not giving us information. We have to go out and search ourselves. My understanding, this is supposed to be accountability, community organizing with the police department. But how can you organize with the police department when you can't get the commander, the district commander, to attend meetings? They have they put together, forget the word of what they plans on what they're gonna do in the community. I can't get the word. It's too strategic. Half the people don't even know what it is, and your commissioners don't know what it is. I had to pull it up. And when I pulled ours up, there was 2 spots. One was traffic on 95th to 75th on Stony Island. The other one was a little part of the community. But the 7th Ward, 10th Ward, we have problems all over. How do I hold the commander accountable for his actions or what he says he's going? We don't have the papers or know what he's going to do, so he's not being held accountable. We can't question him from what he said he's going to do in the community because we don't have the information. So is it possible for this committee, some kind of way you get that information out, not just in our district, but majority of the districts I talk to, they don't meet with their commander. I don't want to meet with police officers. I don't want to meet with CAP because they don't run anything. The commander runs it. Thank you.
4.
The next 3 speakers, Corey Gaston, Christopher Ramos, Taiwan Sims.
I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. How everyone doing today? First thing I want to say for my first little 10 minutes is that I really appreciate you, Commissioner Terry, because I sat back and watched all the times that I have came over the, I guess 4 times. I seen you very observant, one of the ones that's most consistent out of trying to see what it is the community really want, and I appreciate that. That's all we really ask for. Beth and Cliff, we don't even know y'all. We don't know y'all at all. Y'all don't want to have a relationship with the community at all. And it makes me wonder why y'all not elected. We need whatever power y'all have to take a look at what's happening on the ground when it got something to do with violence and the police, with Black men. You gotta study it. It's a pandemic. It is absolutely a pandemic. For whatever reason they dying, for whatever reason they engaging the police in such a way. It's a pandemic. Thank y'all for y'all time.
Thank you.
First name is Christopher, CHRASTOPHER. Last name is Ramos, RAMOS. Good evening. First, let me thank St. James Community Church for hosting this event. My name is Chris Ramos. I am the Latinx and Immigration Community Organizer, and I'm here on behalf of Access Living, which is a disability advocacy organization serving the Chicago metro area. Based on Impact for Equity's report on Chicago 2023 traffic stops released just this month, the data shows pretextual traffic stops disproportionately affect Black and Latinx communities in Chicago, leading to targeted harm and eroding trust between law enforcement and over-policed communities. CPD's heavy focus on minor traffic violations diverts resources from addressing more pressing safety issues such as dangerous driving behavior and responding to 911 calls, ultimately resulting in a waste of government resources. People with disabilities, such as people who are deaf, have auditory processing disorders, or can't respond immediately to physical requests because of their disability, are often misunderstood during traffic stops, leading to potentially harmful misunderstandings or confrontations. These areas have disproportionately high levels of people with disabilities, as Black and brown folks are more likely to be disabled. Ending pretextual stops can alleviate some of these risks by reducing unnecessary interactions between law enforcement and vulnerable individuals. A combination of effective leadership and robust policy change is the most comprehensive approach to correcting racially desperate and harmful pretextual stops and fostering public safety, accountability, transparency within CPD. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our last four speakers, Marari, Jarima. Oh, Ms.
Hello, the mic going in and out. But anyway, my name is Tawan Sims, and I guess I'm an activist. I didn't know that. Where's Deputy Director Waller? When I met him at a event, it was Juneteenth. He called me an activist. I was like, okay, well, I'll take that moniker. But Chicago Alliance Against Racism and Political Regression need to improve. But I'm not here to speak about that. What I'm here to speak about is Officer Huesca. Sorry. And so it's terrible what took place. It's terrible the event. It's terrible what's surrounding, but it's the afterwards. This investigation, this vague investigation, which shows a dark-skinned young gentleman. So now we got Chicago PD once again pointed at Black Americans, young Black Americans. We don't know we don't know who this gentleman is. We don't know if he even had anything to do with this event, but now he's being paraded across the TV, and that's a young Black person. That's a Black American, a dark, like my skin tone. So y'all know historically when that goes down like that, how it works. So now we got X amount of CPD, we got X amount of his colleagues, we got people that loved him, seeking justice or wanting justice by any means, that this could be a hard case for us. And for the news to come out so prematurely and just, hey, let's just put that image up. And we got Anthony Napolitano saying that we lost our city in this event. So imagine the gravity of that. But understand that this community is we have to deal with that now. We got to deal with, I got a 15-year-old, 200 and some pounds, walking the street. We got heightened emotion in our CPD right now, covering this event and praying that some justice come, but praying that proper justice is served. I'm just saying.
Thank you. After Marari, Jermina, Jasmine Smith, Bella Boz, and the Richard.
So I just wanted to start just by saying we want justice, period. You know what I mean? We understand that there's a certain level of powers that the CCPSA has, certain level of jurisdiction. And we believe that the ability to stop pretextual stops is within that. And we want to see you all fight tooth and nail to achieve that. And if it comes in the course of you all giving it your best, that your powers are limited in our demands around, you know, these aspects, then we can say, all right, through your proven effort, let's fight to increase the powers of the commission. Let's fight to give, you know, you who are an extension of this community more power to do these things, because at the end of the day, we want justice. So whatever it is we got to do, we will do it. You know, this man, whatever you feel about this or that, his death flowed immediately from the fact that he was stopped pretextually. He should be alive today. That's injustice. We want justice. Them officers who are walking around on the street, as I believe they are, with 44 something complaints between them, that's injustice on its own. But the fact that they're allowed to stay on the force, and there's no way we're going to allow them to go without, you know, being held accountable. But if for some reason they did, that's injustice. And we want that to end. And we believe that Chicago, unlike any other city in the United States, has the power. The people have, as we've been saying, a pinch of power in that direction to bring police to accountability, to bring them to justice when they do wrong. And so we say any talk about, you know, distrust between the community and the police is an empty conversation if it's not talking about justice, if it's not talking about the police being held accountable for the things that they do and the things that they don't do. That's why we're here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am activist Jasmine Smith. I'm with Chicago Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. I did get a clear understanding of the powers that you guys have in order to successfully end the pretextual stops, and that is months' time. And we also need the commissioners, the candidates that's been appointed to the mayor to be selected in order to even get that ball on the road. So I just wanted to say thank you, Anthony, for the clarity of that earlier. And I'm asking that you guys, like my partner just said, to work with each other and try to apply as much pressure as you guys can to get whoever is blocking that process from the mayor making that selection to get the next commissioners appointed to do so, like, because it's urgent that we get the justice for these young men, because it didn't just start with Dexter Reed. We still waiting on the officers from Ronnie Man killing, waiting on the officers from a Raywood nephew that was killed, waiting on Reginald Clay family. The officers all are still on the force. And the only thing they get is a 30-day suspension with pay while the investigation is going on. And none of them are being taken. The superintendent saying he's not taking nobody, stripping them of their powers while there's an ongoing investigation. But if I shoot one of y'all, I'm going straight to jail and awaiting my trial until I'm proven guilty or innocent. I keep telling, like every time I speak, the police bleed the same blood that we bleed. Their contract needs to be dismantled before the new contract even come up, because that contract is what's protecting them right now to get away with the misconduct they doing. Not officers are bad officers, but the bad officers outweigh the good officers. And it's time for the powers that's been put in place to really use the powers that you guys got and push the next person that you have direct contact with to do what needs to be done for these communities, because we cannot keep allowing these officers to kill us down and get away with it. You would think that the killings stopped when the uprising happened the last time. The killings increased by the police, and enough is enough.
Hi, I'm Bella Boz. Boz is BAHHS. That stands for Black Ancestors Here, Healing Society, not bars, not prisons, not police. We heal us, we keep us safe, we get us free. That's our duty to keep us safe. That is why we are coming to you expressing this demand that we end pretextual traffic stops. It is a collective care measure. It is a collective care demand, because this is not about individual officers or individual community members, but justice for Dexter Reed, absolutely. But this is about justice for all of us, so that there is no more Dexter Reed, so that every time we get pulled over, every time lights flash behind us, we are not scared that we might die because we don't have on a seatbelt, which is something that it's only going to protect us. It's not harming nobody else. To the officer on the line who talked about click it or ticket, that was our bad. We let that go on for way too long. But it was an educational campaign primarily. We're educated, right? We know the benefits of wearing a seatbelt. So to use that to say that because you don't have a seatbelt, we can now have the threat of armed confrontation, right? Like, that is unacceptable. And that is what we are here for. This is a collective care demand. We have to keep us safe, sister, brother, allies. We have to keep us safe. We have to end pretextual traffic stops. We have to end click it or ticket. We have to end the fact that if I don't got the money to pay for this broken headlight, I can be met with armed confrontation. That is not acceptable. That is not okay. Dexter Reed could have been any of us, could have been any of our brothers, our sons, our fathers. It is not okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Richard, last name Richard. I'm a member of the 73rd Union Block Club. I came in, I look at the panel, and frankly, I see a population of people with different backgrounds, but what I don't see is enough gray hair like me. I'm 64 years old, okay? And let me say that the absolute only thing that you as a council and a committee need to do is to be fair. Regardless of whose side that comes down on, you have to be fair. Okay? Now, when you take a look at the cops out here, most of them are working in a hostile environment, not get that type of pay. CPD today is not the CPD it was 10 or 15 years ago. It is not the CPD when I was a kid, and I can attest to that. And you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware that a cop working in Inglewood is going to have different challenges than a cop working in Winnetka. And if you want the cops to continue to work in the neighborhood, you have to be fair to them. Have to know that for every encounter, what they are met with, resistance. I've been pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. I've been pulled over for talking on the phone. Never experienced any of that. You know why? Because I know how to conduct myself. Okay? I know how to conduct myself. And I have and it was not in a Stephen Fletcher, Yassa boss method. It was not. Black folks need to be fair. Be fair with the police if you want safety in your community. Who is it getting killed in the community by and large? It is Black children. It is Black people being killed by Black people. Black cops are not killing them.
We have one final speaker that was actually virtual that's in person, and that is Kristen Noel.
All right.
I appreciate that, Ms. Noel,
Yeah,
too. I do value Mr. Gaston's perspective, and I would ask that whether we agree or disagree, to be respectful of the mic. And so, Ms. Noel, go ahead.
Okay, how's everybody doing tonight? How y'all doing? Hey, y'all. Okay, so Dexter Reed, this is the definition of excessive, right? So we know that there was they're throwing out around the term pretextual. There's no such thing as a pretextual stop. It's either constitutional or it's unconstitutional. It's lawful or it's unlawful. Okay. We don't need to put other terms out there because when it comes to legalities, we want to use the terms that are used to explain that it was illegal, it was against the law, it was against the Constitution of the United States. We do not believe that the cops saw his seatbelt because he had tinted windows. So we believe that they stopped him for no good reason. And because they did that, they violated his civil rights from the jump. Okay. I have veterans in my family and my friends are veterans, and every veteran tells me you don't point a gun at someone unless you are going to shoot them. So when cops get out and point guns at people over seatbelts, they should expect to get shot. That should be their expectation, because pointing a gun at me means that I may get shot. And so I am now in a mode of self-defense. So if I have a gun, I will shoot back at you because I don't know what you're going to do. And even if you have on your uniform, if you point a gun at me over a seatbelt, I know you full of something. Okay? So this is not the way you treat us. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're not going to accept it.
We've reached the end of our public comment period. Thank you again to all of our speakers. We value your input. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Before today's meeting, draft minutes of the commission's meeting held on March 21st were shared with all Are there any corrections to the draft minutes that have been circulated? If there are none, I move to approve the minutes of the commission's meeting that was held on March 21st.
Second.
I have moved and it's been seconded by Commissioner Troncoso to approve the minutes of the commission's March 21st meeting. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, we'll now move to a vote. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it and the motion carries. The minutes are approved. Our next order of business will be new business. We will begin by discussing an update CPD's association's order. And for that, I will pass it to Commissioner Terry.
The CCPSA ordinance established that any new or amended Chicago Police Department policy shall become effective only after commission approval by majority vote. This authority applies to CPG general orders and doesn't include policies that are covered by the consent decree. As the commission's November meeting, we voted to amend the CPD policy 08-03, prohibitions on associations with criminal organizations. CPD enacted the order in January 2024 after the 60-day period when the mayor can review the policy and decide whether to veto it. Since the passage of that amendment, Commissioner Loizon and I have been working with CPD to further refine the general order on criminal and bias-based organizations. Today, we're hoping to vote on a new amendment that we have discussed in previous public meetings and posted on the commission's website for public comment. The amendment includes the following additions to the order: a new section on reporting and transparency, clarification regarding criminal or bias-based organizations related to illegally preventing or interfering with the performance of police duties. Additional language explicitly stating that a criminal or bias-based organization can be determined not just by analysis of activity, but also by analysis of the group's stated mission and values. I move to adopt the proposed amendment of the Chicago Police Department Directive G08-03.
Commissioner Terry has motion and it's been seconded by Commissioner Loizon to adopt the proposed amendment to the Chicago Police Department Directive G08-03. Is there any debate on this motion?
Testing. Testing. Could you just clarify the amendment that says clarification regarding criminal or biased organization related to illegally preventing or interfering with the performance of police duties? Could somebody just help me out and understand what is that amendment related to? What was the previous section and what is the change?
The change was made because there were concerns expressed in public comment as well as our webinars regarding whether certain groups that are perceived to engage in that kind of behavior would actually fall within the definition. And we wanted to make sure that we were not limiting, the scope and breadth of the language, so that it's not intended, I think the way it's written there is a little misleading. It's not intended to say that you are a bias-based organization if you interfere with police activities. That's not what the language says. Instead, it provides additional definition and additional context for how to assess whether certain categories of organization would fall within the definition of the ordinance. So one of the things that we heard many times is, for example, Black Lives Matter. Is Black Lives Matter going to be considered a bias-based organization under the definition provided here? We've clarified the definition so that groups that are engaged in that kind of social activity will not fall within the categories necessarily, but hypothetically, groups do change their mission, their names, their values as time goes on. So it's written in a way that makes it possible for there to be an assessment based on the conduct of the group, and not just its stated mission.
Thank you. That's helpful. If I could just so I can make sure I understood that, what I was concerned, thank you specifically, is that the membership of criminal or biased organization could be limited to only those organizations. That's a subset of biased organizations that somehow are determined to interfere specifically with the performance of police duties. It sounds like that's not the intention, and this may not be the specific language in the general order. Is that correct? Okay, that's what I thought. Got you. Okay, thank you.
Is there any other debate? Are there any other questions? Seeing no further questions, all those in favor of the adoption of the, did somebody motion?
I did.
Okay, seeing no further questions, all those in favor of the adoption of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Although opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it and the amendment is adopted. With the, yeah.
So our next order of business will be the panel that we have organized and convened today to talk about the topic of public safety. And so we also, as a commission, wanted to make a statement collectively regarding current events. And so I will start off the statement and then President Driver will join. On March 21st, Dexter Reed was shot and killed by Chicago. Hot mics. So, and Officer Gregory St. Louis was shot and wounded. Many of us on the commission have lost friends and loved ones to gun violence. Those losses change you forever, and I don't know if you ever recover. So our hearts are very much with every family member and friend who is struggling to live with that loss now. Since the release of the videos related to Dexter Reed's killing, there have been loud cries for justice. We have heard from many people who have watched the videos and think that the officers involved violated police department policy and broke the law. We have also heard from people who have followed COPA's statements about the case and think that the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA, has shown bias in some of its public statement and has called into question the fairness and objectivity of the COPA's investigation. We have to take all of those concerns seriously. The commission oversees CPD and COPA. The law that created the commission says that the commission has to work to increase accountability of both the police department and COPA. One big part of increasing accountability is making sure that when police officers shoot someone, there is a fair and impartial investigation that helps us all understand what the facts are. And then if the facts establish that a police officer violated the law or a police department policy, there must be accountability. That process can be frustrating and painful. We want answers today. We want justice today, but justice takes time. COPA will have to determine whether the officers involved in the case follow the department's policies, and the investigation will require looking at a lot of information beyond the videos. COPA will need to interview the officers involved, which has not been completed yet. COPA usually does an extensive interviews so they know what questions to ask. That can take a while. During the investigation process, COPA is required to assess all circumstances and then make a decision based on its findings. Until it has completed its work and made the results public, it is not appropriate for the commission to come to any conclusions about the case. It's also not the commission's job to do the investigations. We don't have It is the commission's job to oversee COPA and to work to make sure that COPA conducts and timely investigation. A lot of questions and concerns about policy, all of those things, but not its investigation, which can take a year or more. Many things have already been discussed in the media, but it is essential everyone who is involved in the education not say investigations about whether the investigation is fair, objective. If people don't believe an investigation is fair, objective, and impartial, it's it much harder to do the process that could lead the result.
Of serious police misconduct, people often call on the police superintendent action. And some people have called upon the superintendent and us to fire all of the officers involved. We understand why people want action now. The superintendent does not have the authority, nor us, to fire those officers at this time. There's a reason the superintendent doesn't have that power. For many years, Chicago police superintendents had the power on their own to fire officers violating department policies. During that time, there were many cases where superintendents didn't use that power that they had appropriately. For years, Chicago was fought the system. Eventually, they succeeded in creating a civilian oversight system where the power and given to an independent body outside.
Statement for the, so that it can be.
Pass.
Our next order of business will be in the community year. On the committee that in Chicago. That's just government.
Quick point of order. Quick point of order. If we turn off all the mics and maybe use a singular mic, there won't be feedback. And if we speak a little further from the mic, it might actually work. So I will pass this mic down and we'll try that. Last attempt at using the mics. How about that? But a little bit far, because the closer we speak, the more feedback.
Yeah, turn the rest of the mics off.
Can I just have a question on a point of order here for the meeting today? My understanding is there's going to be an opportunity for commissioners to add as they may feel needed to the statement that was just given. I'm wondering if that is now or at the end of the meeting.
At the end of.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. CPD is partnering with CDI and other, can everybody here? All right, CPD is partnering with CDI agencies and also other outside groups, as I see Tyrone coming here, so I would definitely not avoid speaking about his agency also. Let me step back. So.
Can we just like turn all technology?
And it.
You can join us on the panel. Now I will ask the members of the panel discussion today to please come to the stage. Mr. Terry Thomas.
Test, 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 test.
Now ask the panelists to take a to yeah, I know. I want to be respectful. There's people watching online, and so to the extent possible, I do want the people who are participating virtually to be able to hear us talk. So if we can just take a couple minute recess to, there we go. Can you test that mic down there, please?
Test, test,
Okay.
test, test, test,
I'll
test.
now ask the panelists to take a few minutes to introduce themselves, and we will start with Mr. Terry Thomas.
Thank you, Tony. My name is Terry Thomas. I'm a lifelong citizen of Chicago. I'm the age of 55. I have 6 children, 14 grandchildren, and I'm formerly incarcerated. Did 15 and a half years in the federal system. Came home, got right to work. Me and Wakita and Fred Hampton Jr. brokered a peace treaty between 50 Strong and the Blackstones. And the peace treaty has been going on for over 2 years right now. We had a couple of situations where there was a couple of shootings, but we picked the ball back up and continued with the peace in the community. And so that's my mission. The stars aligned. Wakita was on the same page that I was on while in federal prison. He got out looking for me, and I had already put the word out while in prison that what page we needed to be on to save some lives in the community, and that's what we've been doing. We haven't lost any brothers that's a part of the peace treaty, but you know, this is not something that we went into with rose-colored glasses. We know that situations may occur, but we agreed that we would pick up the ball and continue to work in the community to save lives. And that's my mission, to save as many lives as I can, you know. And so I know that this is a situation where you have Samson and the Goliath situation. And so we need all hands on deck, because the young brothers' lives and the young sisters' lives are worth saving. They're worth saving, and they're not throwaways, and they just need the resources. And we need the resources to put safe zones in our own community, to police our own community, because we know what's going on in the communities. We can't have somebody from another community coming in our community trying to solve a problem that we know we can solve. You know, so I'm going to pass the mic, and I'm passing to Brother Benny Lee.
Good evening, South Side of Chicago. I was asked by my sister Ramel to sit on this panel. Initially, it was going to happen in my community on the west side of Chicago. And when I say the west side of Chicago, I ain't talking about Garfield or Lawndale or Humboldt Park. I'm talking about Austin community, where I come from. And that was my interest, to my community, and to hear the voices of young brothers and sisters in my community and some of the elders but unfortunately they changed the venue, so we ended up here. I've been around a minute, you know, I'll be 70 years old next month. Yeah, I done survived a lot. You know, I'm one of the original boss, brothers of the struggle. We were in 1978 indicted for some murders of some prison guards in Pontiac Prison. And each one of us was charged with 15 counts of murder, 2 attempt murder, mob action. And we were all from different mobs, myself, Larry Hoover, Ike Taylor, Smokey Eel, Danky, Tuffy, you know, we all got indicted. And we organized ourselves because the state was definitely seeking the death penalty. And so we went 3 years fighting the death penalty. Our people had to take our case all the way to the United Nations, saying that we couldn't get a fair trial because it was the largest death penalty case in this country. I served for many years as the national ambassador for the almighty Vice Lord nation. So I know what it's like to structure and organize. I know what it's like to be in Stateville Maximum Security Penitentiary and do research and recognize there's only 80 slots for people to go to school when you had over 2,000 inmates fighting over those slots and 2-year waiting lists and only 110 jobs, a condition, circumstances where stronger gangs try to dominate the weaker gangs on who's gonna put their guys in those slots. And it lead to a lot of violence. So I've been at those kind of tables. I've been at tables out here in the 60s when there was LSD. Lord Stone's disciples came together as a citywide coalition and shut down over $80 million worth of construction in this city because they refused to hire contractors. Been a lot, did a lot. You know, these kind of forums here, they don't impress me, you know, because the people that really need to be here, these little brothers that's in these streets, they need to be in here. Their voices need to be heard. And then at the same time, they need to be educated. There got to be some type of dialogue. You know, Martin Luther King, his first step of nonviolence is you got to get your facts together. And see, we don't have the facts on how our young people see the community because we're not talking to them. And they don't have the facts because they're not listening to the elders. So we got to do some kind of collaboration, right? But that's just a little background about me. You know, I thought we was going to be on the west side. That's why I volunteered to come on here. You know, and I'm going to say this and land the plane. I'm totally against people outside of my community that don't community. Get these grants, open up programs in our community, control of program. And then when an organization like mine and Brother Tyrone Muhammad, when we go for these type of grants, we got to compete against them. They end up getting the money, right? And we get excluded and all those kind of things. So that's got to stop. That's called colonization. Our communities are being colonized. People on the outside coming in and monopolizing the resources and all the political power and all that stuff. And then we just become like little puppets and fight over each other or what little crumbs they offer. That's got.
Thank you. Thank you for the for your opening remarks. I would just pose a question to Mr. Terry Thomas. And that question, you spoke about getting out of prison and immediately brokering a truce. Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to do that, one, and two, if you think that that's something that can be replicated in other communities? And I ask that specifically because I think there's been a lot said about whether or not people who are coming home, whether young folks will actually listen to them. And is it possible for our young people to listen to elders who are coming out of prison, who have had that experience? And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's paramount that they listen. I did what I did because I used to be one of them young guys out there. You know, I used to be a leader in the community. And so the reason why I was able to get out and brokered this peace treaty with Jeff Ford's son and Chairman Fred's son is because we had a prior relationship, and the relationship wasn't always good, but it wasn't always bad either. We always was able to dialogue with one another, face to face and over the phone. And so I'm a living witness to the young people listening. I was outside to 2 a.m, brokering this peace treaty, talking face to face with these young men with guns on them, not afraid because I knew their parents and their grandparents and their family members. So I had a relationship with them prior to going to prison. And so they're to be commended for their efforts to stop pointing the guns at each other and stop trying to take each other's lives. And so what I told them was, I just gave them some of my life experience. To be framed by Chicago police officers and sentenced to 30 years of life in the feds for a crime that I didn't commit. I told them that that could be them because of the way our community is being policed. And so, so they listened to me, and I told them that they don't want somebody else to raise their children. They don't want to be in a situation where they have to be moved from state to state and you can't get visits from your family members. And so they listened to me, and I just tried to be open and honest with them that it's gonna be hard living in the community that you're living in because you wasn't, before you was born, you couldn't choose where you stay at. So the difficulty gonna come when you have to be faced with dealing with the police that's from a whole nother community with these attitudes that they can just come and treat us any kind of way. And to speak about the Dexter Reed situation, that was a Terry stop. That's called Terry versus Ohio. It's a legal stop. And so the stop shouldn't have happened in the first place. You know, so we have to go back to why the stop happened. He don't have to be dead today because had you not did a Terry stop, illegal Terry stop, he wouldn't be dead today. You know, and so what I'm trying to do in my community is be the voice of reasoning for both sides with the help of Wakita and many other guys in the neighborhood where I'm from, and to make sure that we can make sure that this don't become a generational thing with them because it's been going on for over 30 years. So it was other organizations that came into the community that couldn't stop it. And so everybody asking me, how was we able to do it? Is because we have a relationship. You can't come into these neighborhoods and you don't have a relationship with the young men that's carrying the guns. You know, so I took it upon myself to stay out to 2 o'clock in the morning because I had people who was in disagreement with the peace treaty because they said they lost too many people. And like I told them, I was shot 13 times. I was shot 13 times. And so, but I understand that we can't bring those people who we lost back. But moving forward, we can save their children. You know, we can save their grandchildren. We can't bring them back, but we can work together to be in harmony in this community. Because I remember when the community was in harmony. It wasn't no one getting shot and killed every day. You know, so this is a model that could be used across the city. And there's a lot of organizations that's out here doing the work. But we doing this without bagging of the so-called people that's at the top. We just doing it because we want to see some lives saved. We want to see our people stop killing one another.
About the work that you do with the Department of Corrections and returning citizens, and how do you think that work public safety in the city of Chicago?
Well, one, I know it ain't no such thing as a Black community. Because we so divided. You got Christians at war with other Christians. You got Muslims at war with other Muslims. You got West Side people look at South Side people different. There ain't no black community. We don't control nothing. But I do say this here, you know, America make up 5% of the whole world population. But America has 25% of the world locked up. Here in Illinois, this morning, 70% of the prison in Illinois this morning been there before. 70% of the people in Illinois prisons are people that's been there before. A lot of new people ain't going to prison. It's the same people. And that include women. 60% of those people come from 6 neighborhoods in Chicago. 6 neighborhoods in Chicago make up close to 60% of Illinois prison population. And when they get released, they're going back to those communities. And it's sad that more people woke up this morning in Chicago on house arrest than you have in the whole Illinois prison system. Now, if that ain't an indication, it's a war on our communities. What is? So my organization, NAEFI, National Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated, how we started in 2009, a lot of brothers and sisters was coming to me like, hey, I need to get up with you when I get out. I've been home, I can't get a job because of my background. So I called a meeting and challenged them. About 47 convicted felons showed. 12 of them was women. Say, we the most passive group in this country. You know, the handicapped people are being discriminated against. They fought for their human rights. Now try to go to any public facility and don't see a handicapped parking space. They fought for their human rights. The gay community was being discriminated against. They didn't fight for gay rights. They fought for human rights. Now try to discriminate against a gay person. Or women. Women are protected class. Gay people are protected class, right? Handicapped people are protected class. We as convicted felons, we got to fight to become a protected class. Even the United States highest court, the Supreme Court ruled in a case in Washington. They couldn't vote for 7 years after they come out. And they took their case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled because convicted felons are not identified as a protected class up on the Voting Protection Act. And ain't nothing they can do. This is why some states can deny convicted felons the right to vote. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862. It didn't pass Congress until 1865. And it suggested no person of U.S. citizenship should be subject to slavery or indentured servitude unless otherwise convicted of a crime. And that gave birth to the 13th Amendment. And Frederick Douglass argued, okay, now you done freed us, but you don't see us as citizens. That's when they fought to pass the 14th Amendment, that everyone is entitled to equal protection of the law and due process of the law. But do it really apply to convicted felons? So that's what my fight is about. Go inside the prisons and raise brothers' awareness. I push an African proverb, you can't build your shield on the battlefield. And see what's happening out here. It's another proverb. An army alliance cannot defeat. No, an army alliance led by a sheep cannot defeat an army of sheep led by a lion. So when you look at these young brothers out here, these are lions, but their leadership are sheeps, flipping on them, lead them down the slaughter. 20 years later, where they at? Dead, in prison, strung out on drugs. But those so-called sheeps, the young brothers going to school, getting an education, coming back with degrees, they being led by men. And where they at 20 years later? Still alive, buying homes, prospering. We got to look at our leadership. So that's what my organization do. We go in and we train those that's coming home, raise their awareness. Because see, and I'm going to say this and land the plane. The issues that brothers and sisters struggle with, they're not present in prison. No one's challenging them to pay rent for that cell they sleep in, or the food they eat, or the clothes they wear. But the day they walk out of prison, they gotta figure out how they're gonna feed themselves, clothe themselves, and house themselves. And that's pressure. For a resume. I was part of me really wanted to stay out, but I had more confidence in my hustling skills than I did in working a job. Someone had to normalize my reality and look at the ability, that part of me that was strong, the part that would commit a crime, that would shoot somebody. I had to kill that guy off and grow. I really wanted to function with integrity and with some principles and some values and make my community, my family proud of me. That part of me was weak because of the circumstance. And this is what we do with my organization, show them they ain't got traumatized in an interview when they say we do background checks. How do you respond to that moment? And that's educating them. The companies get a tax break and hire a convicted felon. They can earn a fidelity bond, meaning they insured if they steal something or break something, the company won't take a loss. They can earn a certificate of good conduct with the governor's signature on it stating that they recognize them in the good standards with the state of Illinois. They can earn a medical disability waiver where hospitals normally don't hire convicted felons. That would be hired. And a lot of them come out not knowing this stuff, and you got these organizations getting all this funding to work with formerly incarcerated convicted people. They ain't never left a penitentiary before. They don't know what it's like to deal with all this double conscience, as W.B. Du Bois put it so clear. How we as Black folks see ourselves and how we believe the world see us. And we don't know how to respond to that. And these little brothers don't understand the power of eye contact that can lead to killing. So we got to teach them, how do you respond to someone just looking at you, man? This is the kind of stuff we do. You know, we understand the psychological blocking agents that lead men and women back to prison. So how do we address that, right? And I think we need to throw more money into communities, the people of the community, from the community. Every block, if not a block club, should have some type of restorative justice court in that community. The only way community gonna get better is when the members of the community get better. It's a community issue. Only the community, only the hood stay the hood. And I put emphasis on that because we don't have neighborhood. Because we ain't neighbors no more. And we see most of this stuff at, who is in prison? Your poor, your uneducated, but that's who's in prison. So we got to address, as Martin Luther King say, those three evils: racism, militarism, and poverty. Those are the three evils. If those not addressed, we're going to continue to have crime and violence. And that's how we come and raise brothers aware. Stuff exists, but you got to learn a better way to respond different than you have. And trust me, I was one that did that as a youth, 2 years in IYC, Little Joliet, St. Charles, 2 weeks later in the county jail, went to the joint at 19, come out at 27, went right back 4 months later, did 3 calendar, got out, stayed 30. So I know what it's like to go in and out that stuff because of the way I used to think. I'm gonna pass the mic.
You go. You go.
Testing, yeah. Well, is it open questions now? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you, Benny Lee, for driving from the west side to the south side, and thank you for all the great work you're doing on the west side. I have just one specific question. So this commission has legal authority to review policies and practices of the Chicago Police Department for making recommendations to improve those policies and practices. As it relates to community violence intervention, CVI, I'm curious what both of you would say are policies or practices that the Chicago Police Department currently has that could be improved. In other words, what would you want us to try to do if you could give us some recommendations to look into so that CVI is more widely embraced and partnered with CPD, if anything? I'm not assuming there is, but I want to give you the opportunity to point us in the direction of police practices and policies you'd recommend needing changing.
Well, someone mentioned earlier today that you have good police and you have bad police. From what I'm seeing is that when police officers, even the good ones, if you don't expose the bad ones, that makes you bad as well. You know, so when you can lie on a police report and all y'all sign y'all name to this police report, and so that means you no longer a good police officer. That means you're a corrupt police officer. You're a criminal. So, you know, right now we're still dealing with the fact that we stand in a city, a state that is now labeled as the torture capital of America or of the world. So I've been in places recently since I've been home advocating for the brothers who was tortured by John Burge, who was framed by his cronies, his understudies. My brother's been in prison for 33 years, Orly Thomas, framed by James Cassidy. So none of these police officers have did any time but the leader, which was John Burge, who is now dead right now. And so we need to address that issue because these same officers who worked up under John Burge are still on the force, some of them. So we need to get them off the force so we can get get these situations rectified, that these guys that they tortured and framed are still in prison, serving time for crimes they didn't commit. So from my perspective, we need to start there.
Well, one thing I see is that we got some elders that retired from the police force that were real Black men in the police department. I mean, where's the voice of these Black police officers at? I mean, they live in our community. These are our uncles, nephews, cousins, and they police force. I mean, where's their voice at? I mean, at least Howard Sappho and Renault Robinson, them in the 60s, when they were strongly discriminated against the police department because the way they was treated as Black police officers, they come together and organize up under African American Patrolman League and sued the police department and won that suit. Gained respect. So where's the backbone of these Black police officers, right? And when it comes to the work we do, see, I was one of the very first violence interrupters hired by Ceasefire back in 1994. And it wasn't but three of us, myself and Big Fareed and Abba Khan, one of the generals of the El Rukins. And these guys nowadays that's getting this money and getting hired to do this violence interruption stuff, these guys, they ain't really effective. And what I mean by that is that when I was a violence interrupter, I networked with my community and had agreements. Every area where there was a war, I found a safe space bringing brothers to talk. You don't see these kind of guys doing that nowadays. You know, and the main thing before I pass this mic is time. Beef with he couldn't put it on Facebook because Facebook didn't exist. He couldn't go on Twitter and all them other social engines, right? So about time we do see each other, somebody done hollered at him and said, man, I know Benny Lee, man, let me holler at him. They probably done holler at me and said, man, I know Terry, let me holler at him. So when we do see each other, it ain't that intense. But today, if I had a beef with Terry, he put it on social media and my guys see it, they comment, and then his guys see they comment. Now it's a war on social media. Ain't no talking now when we see each other. So violence interruption now got to intervene on the social media now. It's got to be a triad approach. You're not talking with the brothers on the streets, but who's talking to the guy that just left the street that's in the jail that's coming calling back to the land? Who's talking to the brother that's been in the joint 10 or 15 years that's got some influence and on his way home? Who's talking to them? Because we can quell the situation 5 years ago. Then a brother come home that's been gone 15 years that didn't like the way it was dealt with and started all over again. We got to monitor that stuff. Our community is like grave sites. Every other telephone pole or light pole got balloons and stuff on what somebody got killed. Anniversaries roll around. Got to stay on top of that. These guys come and they celebrate, honor that. How are they thinking? They get drunk. Man, we should have did. Now you got to stay on top of this stuff. This work ain't easy. And when it comes to work with the police, I don't work with the police. Because if I'm working with the police, then I lose my credibility with these guys out here. Because I might be talking to a little brother, he got a thumper on him, and he ready to go move on this here guy here. I ain't finna say, hey, police, this guy got a gun. No, I can't do that. I got to try to talk him down. That's what my skills kick in. How do I de-escalate? And what I mean by de-escalate is calm his emotions down. Because they ain't going to talk when their emotions is high. And these are the kind of things that, I'm going to say this and lay the plan for real. You got violence prevention, you got violence interruption, and then you got nonviolence. We do a lot of violence interruption. What that means, you quell a situation between me and Terry, and we shake hands, say we cool, but we still walk away with violent tendencies. So when we have a situation in the future, we're gonna respond in a violent way. We need to learn nonviolence tactics. I gotta declare that I'm a nonviolent person, so when I have a situation in the future, I'm gonna address it in a nonviolent way. This is what needs to happen. Got to be a lot of training education to reduce a lot of this stuff.
Thank you both for being here. This has been really helpful tonight. And it's possible that you just answered the question I have, but I wanted to know, we heard from Deputy Director Waller earlier that CPD is doing a lot more to reach out to CVI organizations. And what he shared with us is that it's getting better. It's not as bad as it used to be. And I think my question was, what is your perspective on whether it's getting better or not?
One thing, who own those agencies that's getting this CVA money? They don't look, they look like me that's from the hood, that's being hired to do outreach work. They limited to what they can do because the overseer said, no, don't do that. Don't say that. So they limited, right? This is why I say that money got to go to guys like us in the hood that's got relationship with these brothers and the families. I remember last time I was in Stateville, shoot, them little guys coming down to 18, 19 years old, these were the sons of girls I went to grammar school with. And I challenged, they need to get their little butt in school because we had an oath we took. We will serve our time constructively so that upon our release, we become a more productive member of our community. See? And we stood on that because I had to go home. I had to see them grandmamas. I had to see them sisters that I went to school with. That's a community thing. That's our community behind the wall. We got a community behind the wall. They need resources while they there to equip them psychologically, emotionally, behavior wise, so when they come home, they know how to function out here. You follow what I'm saying? But yeah, these CBI programs, yeah, them brothers, a lot of them, they do some good work. They got good relations, but they limited to what they do because the people that got the funding, the administration, the board of directors, limit what they can and cannot do because they work for them. And them brothers need jobs, so they compromise their values for that job. Give the money to Tyrone Muhammad.
The reason why I took the same approach that the brother took, see, I'm in process of starting my own organization because I don't want to work for none of those organizations because I was offered many times to come and work for the organization, but I know that I'm only going to get a lion's share. They're going to get the lion's share of the funds when I'm out there doing the work. And it's evident that what I did worked when all the other organizations couldn't make that happen. Me and the brothers, Wakita and Fred Hampton Jr. and many others in the community, we went and did what you getting paid to do, and you couldn't do it. And I was gone for 17 years, you know, and so the methodology that I use is that I meet them where they at. I don't look at their appearance and look at because they sagging their pants or judging them. I'm coming in there humble and respectful because I know where respect is given, respect is due. I'm not coming in there like the police. I'm going in a situation where there's, I'm bringing clarity in a situation where there's a bunch of confusion and disinvestment in the community where I'm at. So that plays a major role when you have these communities disinvested in. You have food deserts, you have educational deserts, you have places where they can't go and learn a skill to get them a living wage job or better. So what I did while I was in prison, I mentored young men with yoga. I mentor young men with making bags, designing bags, and I brought two of them here with me today so that I'm just not talking to talk. This is what I do. I design bags by hand. None of the bags go on the machine. So I'm able to have something to bring them in for me to do what I do to help them save their lives, and not only, but make them entrepreneurs. We need them to have something that they learn and they turn it into their own business. So this is what we lacking in the community. We lacking community centers where we can come in there while we teach them something, we can mentor them, we can change their perspective on the brother next to them. So they can take a mirror and look in the mirror and look to the left and look to the right and see that when you kill him, you looking in that mirror, you killing yourself. So therefore we got to bring some clarity in all of this confusion and chaos that's in the community. And with that, we need the proper resources. This movement ain't gonna continue without the proper resources. So a movement needs some money to move, you know, but I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the sake of all the young brothers that came under me and the young sisters that came under me, that their lives can be saved, that they can have a future instead of having a future inside of a prison or their life is gone in the grave, you know, because they have more to live for and less to die for, you know, so that's what I believe.
Other questions for any commissioners?
First of all, thank you for your amazing work, for your testimony. I got him. I got you. I'll buy you. one thing that I've noticed and what y'all said about the neighborhood, saving the neighborhood and the block clubs and all the work. There's a lot of people from block clubs that come to our meetings. I've gotten, calls from people in block clubs from all parts of the city that say, hey, come talk to these guys. And I'm like, hey, that's not what I do. They don't, I've never been to prison. A lot of people, here's the crux of my question. A lot of people that don't have your skills, that don't get the respect that y'all get, don't know what to do. And they're frozen because they're scared. Because they've never held a gun, They feel themselves to be targeted. And oftentimes their only answer to hearing gunshots is calling the police. And that doesn't necessarily even get, the response that it deserves all the time in the city that's facing so many issues. So for those folks, and I think this is something that, as you all have mentioned, has exacerbated with the generational divide. Because I'm not particularly old, but I feel that even the young kids in my neighborhood are very different, and they operate differently. Even though I've been in the same neighborhood for a long time than when I was growing up. So I'm curious to know, how are you all approaching those folks? Because I do believe it takes everyone, but not everyone has your courage, your skills, your expertise. What are the kinds of roles that those folks can play so that they can organize their block clubs in their neighborhoods?
Well, one thing I try to tell a lot of my peers, we can't engage young people in conversation about how it was for us, because that ain't how it is now. So we got to learn to listen. See, my thing is I do 20% talking and 80% listening. So they had to teach me how they see things. A good example, my son, he left Chicago about 8 years ago to get off this east side because he was kind of hot. He was with a crew, they was No Limit, right? And he left because he was hot. But while he was there, through social media, his homies saw him work in a hospital, right? Struggling in a Dollar Tree and all this stuff. And his language started changing. Now, 3 months ago, he wanted to be around his son, so he wanted to move back to Chicago. So giving him some, I wouldn't say fatherly advice, but some OG advice, because I've been there. He started what you call an urban peace circle on Zoom. Matter of fact, they had it tonight. And he reached out to all his homies that he sold drugs with, gang bang with, and appealed to them to get on this Zoom. And the first one, about 30 guys got on. And he appealed to them like, man, we got to reconcile our relationships with each other, because we all in our 30s now. And we got to go back on these blocks where we come from and impress them little shorties. If they can follow us into this gang life, they can follow us into this new life. And that peace circle has been like a healing circle. I'm hearing these little guys making comments like, man, I can't wait till this circle come, man, because I got so much stuff going on, and this is a safe place where I can talk. And a lot of them little guys became employed since then. A lot of them done bagged down from a lot of stuff, right? So my approach is, when I'm talking to a young person, I'm trying to pull out of them, not pull into them. I got to ask, like I might ask a young brother, say, man, what do you want to have accomplished, say 6 months from now? What do you want to have accomplished? Or what do you want your life to look like 1 year from now? I know he can't answer that because he never thought about it. And because I know that, now I got to pull it out of, like, for example, do you want your own apartment? Do you want a car? Yeah. What's some other things? So I'm pulling the vision out of him. That's a technique. Then I asked him, say, well, what do you got to do to make that a reality? I know he can't answer that because he never did it before. For example, do you think you might need to get in school? Do you think you might need to probably take up a trade? What are some other things? Get him to start thinking for himself on what he needs to do. And then, what do you know about you that might block you from reaching that outlet? And I know you don't know how to answer because he never did a self-assessment, inventory. So I might ask the question like, let me ask you this. Have you ever had an opportunity that you really wanted and you know you blew it because of you? Yeah, let's talk about that. And he said, talk about, I said, that's what you got to pay close attention to. That part of you That's that part of you got to divorce and you got to kill off, man. What's some other thing now that you recognize what I'm saying, that you know about you that might block you? So we got to know how to talk to, I talk to old fools too. Because you got some old fools out here. And then you got some black men that are really niggers. You got some niggers out here. And there's a characteristics and a mindset that come with a nigger. And all black men, all black women are not niggers. That's an attitude. That's a belief system. So we got to get them to kill the nigger mentality. That's what leads to the black on black violence and the black on black crime. So we got to train. I'm one of the lead trainers with the Peace Academy through Metropolitan Family Service, right? Started off, right? And that's what I train these outreach workers. You got to understand motivational interviewing. How do you motivate a person to change? How you can get them to tap into the intrinsic, that something inside of them. We got to believe that there's something inside of them that's dying to come out to be better. Because see, God ain't programmed no man or woman to fail. We're not programmed to do wrong. We're not programmed to mistreat each other. And when we do, a warning sign go off called guilt, shame, embarrassment. And as workers working with these young people, we got to believe that's inside of them. And we got to bring it out of them and not tell them what they should do, but we need to pull from them what they think. Give them the autonomy to figure it out, and we just guide them there.
To piggyback off what the brother said, I think we need to set up these ecosystems throughout the city where, but I have to start in my community first. These ecosystems consist of giving them training, dealing with the misplaced aggression that they have. Because you look at these young men, they got a lot of misplaced aggression. And so by me knowing that, I just know how to approach them and engage them because during my prison stint, I was dealing with young men from all parts of the United States. So I made it my business to have a program inside the prison that I was into. Like I had an ab class that I was running, and I was able to not only just deal with my people, but I was able to deal with Latino brothers. I was able to even deal with some Aryan Brotherhood guys because I was that respected in the prison that they would listen to me too. And so, and I wasn't a part of no organization. I wasn't in a coalition because in the federal prison coming from Chicago, most of the guys that's coming from Chicago are in what you call a coalition. And that's all the street organizations coming together, a Midwest coalition. And so I wasn't a part of that because I believe that being in the belly of the beast, we got to be together, and so, and I just bring those same skills out here to the street, to my community, to help the young men and engage them where they're at, because I know that, like I said before, I was once one of those young men out there. I was once one of those young men that was carrying a gun. I was once one of those young men out there selling the drugs, but didn't nobody give up on me, and I didn't give up on myself. So I know that a lot of these young brothers I engaged so many brothers inside the prison that you wouldn't believe how many of them never had another man to tell them that they love them. And so with my, in the leather shop or me on the workout yard, I would always engage the young brothers. And before I started the workout, I'd say, man, if ain't nobody never told you that they love you, man, I love you, man. And so you would see some guys tear up or come back to me and say, man, T, I need to hear that. Because no one never told me that before. I never had a father to tell me that, or my grandfather, or none of my uncles to tell me that. And so what I do, as much as possible, I try to make them feel wanted and make them feel valuable and make them want to come and open up and tell me some of the things that they got going on. So what we have to do is just be the message that we bring, because they looking at us. You know, I had guys tell me, man, you haven't changed as far as the way you conduct yourself. That's why I respect you so much. So we just have to engage them in a humble and respectful way. Even though they may have the gun on them, but the gun ain't for you, because you don't got no situation with them. So the gun is not for you. What you trying to do is prevent them from going to use the gun on somebody over Facebook beef, or cause my cousin got killed and now you want to taunt me because my cousin got killed. So these are the things that we have to grab a hold to, because those things can blow up quick. They can get out of hand so fast that it'd be like a wildfire, and you'll see people coming up dead so fast that you could get a hold of it. You know, so, and that's my situation, where I know that even when a situation occurs, we have to get right on top of it. We can't wait till weeks later for something to transpire.
This is a situation going on in my just had to work through that as a family. Our real violence interruption work got to kick in the family. Y'all need to sneeze, man. Your grandma ain't here, but your granddaddy here, who's 90 years old, he's worried about you all. You got to heal from that. That's over. Painful as it may be, but you got to deal with that. And that's what we need in our community, is these restorative justice education, so every member of our community understand restorative justice. Because we commit crime on each other. And if I break in his house, his family looking at my family like an enemy, I come home, it's tension on the block. Somehow, before I come home, there needs to be a restorative justice circle in the joint before I come home. And I got to be confronted by the person I offended, right? And at the same time, I need the opportunity to make that amends before I come home. And when I come home, we need to do it on a community level, because it had a ripple effect. These are the kind of things we need in our community. And only we can do that, not somebody that got funded to come over and send somebody to facilitate the process. It's got to be us. That's what I wanted to say.
It goes back to Modiba, Nelson Mandela, when he became the president of South Africa. He freed everybody from the prisons. Didn't matter what type of crime you had. And so what he did was, the people who committed crimes upon the people, he made it where you was able to go and get reconciliation. You had to sit down with that family, and you had to apologize. You had to do a public mea culpa, and you had to reconcile that situation, even if you kill somebody. And it was up on that family to approve you as far as you being forgiven to that family. And so he created something that was very important in South Africa, where he set up a commission to have these people come and sit down, and they did reconciliation, forgiveness, and to restore them people back into the community with forgiveness. And it worked in South Africa. And so we have to use some of those tactics as well, because it's a lot of people in our communities that's hurting behind family members being killed by people 2 blocks away. And so how do we solve that situation? We have to make amends. We have to sit down and talk. Like the brother said, we have to have safe places where they can come and talk. And so that's something that we need to work on.
Thank you. So, before we close out, I think Commissioner Nellis wanted to make a closing statement. I personally want to thank you all for joining us here today. I think this was extremely insightful. I don't want this to be the end of it, or just to stay a conversation, to actually moving that into action. Also, Deputy Director Waller, I don't know if you wanted to make any remarks as well. We did particularly ask. So I can't see if you saying yes or no.
Well, no, I just say this, listening to these two brothers, a lot of insight, and I always learn something from someone. And one brother I know always say, God gave us 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason, to do more listening and looking than we do talking. So I always listen to people. I'm always insightful, and I try to understand a different perspective that people come from, and build relationships with those people. And I think that's why I've kind of been given this task by the superintendent, to try to forge some of the issues that we've had with CVI, with other agencies. And like I said, I've seen it work. Of course, it's never going to be perfect in how it's conceived, how it's looked at by both sides. People have had problems with each other, but when we've done some of these workshops, I worked in the projects for a number of years when I was a police officer, and I see some of these brothers now who are on that side. It may be sometimes motivated by money, but I've also seen them out when we've had teen gatherings and teen trends where they're doing real work. So I appreciate that. I like I say, what I like is because now it seems like we could take ideas from LA, New York, wherever, but a lot of this is Chicago homegrown, and that's what I like about it, because we can put our own cultural flair upon it, and do some things that's Chicago homegrown, and that's what we need to focus on, because Chicago is culturally different than a lot of other places. So I appreciate the opportunity. I get to know, exchange some ideas with some of these brothers, and then we can continue to move forward. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
May I proceed? So I just wanted to make a very brief statement related to the Dexter Reed incident. I have prepared a short statement that I'll read, but based on some public comment, I just have a few points I want to. First, I just want to say I really applaud COPA in this situation. This is a record-setting transparency that the city of Chicago has never seen. Videos, reports, all things were released within 19 days, and that is not something that we're used to. And I applaud Chief Kirsten and COPA for exceeding the 60-day requirement in the consent decree and doing it in 19 days. A couple of things that were also stated in public comment that I do think it's important that the public do understand what our powers are. We have spoken about what they are not, and we do not have powers to investigate. We do not determine what should be the actions taken against the officers in this incident, but we do have powers to review police practices and policies. And so it is on this commission to identify practices and policies like the ones, many of which have been raised by the public today, to recommend changes. And I just wanted to say that. Personally, I also wanted to just share, one of my close friends on the West Side and I spoke the last few weeks, and we both related on how oftentimes it is very triggering when we hear we can't comment on things because it's quote unquote still under investigation. And while that there is some truth to that, it's oftentimes comes off in a way that sounds distrusting or like we're hiding something, because oftentimes the response is there's 30 videos and multiple police reports. What else is there left to see, right? And so I'm just sharing that I feel you on that. I do feel you on that. I oftentimes wish that leaders would focus on things that we do know, be very clear about what we do know, because there are some things we do know. Be very clear what we don't know. What is the piece of evidence that would answer that? When do we think that we would get that evidence? And why it matters. But for reasons I'll share in a second, that is not what I'm going to do today. The last thing I will say is that testing with respect to the with respect to, geez. Oh. Oh, so it's still, okay, well, it's working now. So with respect to not commenting on a pending investigation, I just want to say that that applies to all city agencies. And I would make sure that I want to include CPD on that, that we don't want to undermine the validity of COPA's investigation, particularly when they have a good job of transparency and modeling that for our city. So this is my statement. We are a commission with a name that tells the public that we stand for community, public safety, and accountability. This commission is sitting here today in the wake of an incident in which a Chicago resident was fatally shot, a Chicago police officer was seriously wounded by gunfire, and nearly 100 bullets flew on a city block. And the conflict is reported to have begun because a driver was not wearing a seatbelt. However you respond to this incident, those are not easy facts to digest. That this is an issue that is dividing our city, and that division and debate will continue for months to come, I'm sure. Due to videos released by COPA following its transparency mandate under the consent decree, the public can see this incident and feel the trauma of what occurred on this day. Now there is an investigation of the officer's actions and the incident, and a civil lawsuit has been filed on behalf of the family of Dexter Reed. I believe it's best for me to let this process play out before I render an opinion. But like you, I have one. I look forward to the day when it's appropriate for me to share it. And I will continue to spend my personal and professional life committed to reducing the likelihood of death and injury in our city. There are a lot of tears and anger in the city right now over this matter, and those emotions are fueled by how people react to what they see on the videos. And I'm available to anybody who wants to work with the community and law enforcement to find solutions that reduce the risk of people being shot in the city of Chicago. Thank you.
So we are now about to conclude our meeting. The commission's next regular meeting will be at Truman College on May 30th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Seeing no further business before the commit. Thank you, everyone.